Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today we're going to talk about 25 of the most notorious mobsters in American history. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. Set the bell on all so you can get all my videos. So the history of organized crime in America is a storied one, marked by tales of power, wealth, and violence that reached the American dream turned into a nightmare. From the early 20th century, the rise of the mafia and other criminal organizations has left an indelible mark on the American culture's landscape. And these figures have become infamous, not just because of their criminal endeavors, but because of the way they have influenced politics, economics, and popular culture. Let's take a look into the lives of these 25 notorious mobsters in America, exploring the rise to notoriety and their reign of terror and often violent ends. These individuals are a testament into the dark side of ambition and the complexities of American society. We're going to start it off with Mr. Al Capone. Al Gabriel Capone, better known as Al Capone, some people know him as Scarface, reigned supreme over Chicago's underworld during Prohibition era. His multi-million-dollar operation in bootlegging, gambling, prostitution made him one of the most infamous gangsters in American history. Despite his criminal empire, Capone is known for his charitable endeavors, which has endeared him to be somewhat of a public hero. His eventual downfall came from tax evasion charges, leading to his imprisonment and his decline in health and power. And he ended up dying almost penniless in Florida. The next gangster we're going to take a look at is John Dillinger. John Dillinger became a household name in the 1930s as a bank robber who eluded the FBI multiple times, earning him the title of public enemy number one. His daring escapes, robberies made him a legend, and some viewing him as a modern-day Robin Hood. However, his criminal career was cut short when he was betrayed and killed by federal agents outside of Chicago movie theater. Pretty wild. He met a grisly fate. And a lot of the onlookers were like dipping their rags in his blood and things like that. It's pretty crazy that a criminal would go from being hated to loved by a lot of people. Next up on the list is Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were captured the American public's imagination during the Great Depression, which is a series of bank robberies and store robberies across central United States. Their love affair and crime spree made headlines, turning them into folk heroes of some sort. Their violent end in a police ambush in 1934 only added to their legend. Next up, we got Lucky Luciano. Charles Lucky Luciano is credited with creating the structure of the modern organized crime in the United States. He established the Commission in the 1930s, which served to resolve disputes and govern organized crime activities nationally. Luciano's influence is extended beyond the Italian mafia, impacting the entire underworld. Next up, we have Mr. Meyer Lansky. He was known as the mob's accountant. He was a sharp financier, playing a critical role in the development of the national crime syndicate in the United States. His involvement with gambling operations, both legal and illegal, across the country and into Cuba, earned him an immense wealth and influence. Despite his criminal empire, Lansky was never convicted of any serious crime. And a lot of people don't know where these people's money is today. It's pretty wild that they're able to do so much with so little they had back in the day and turn it into what it became. Next up on the list, we have Bugsy Siegel. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel was a charismatic figure whose Hollywood good looks, dangerous reputation made him a celebrity gangster. He was instrumental in the development of Las Vegas as a gambling paradise. Throughout his involvement in the construction of the Flamingo Hotel, Siegel's lavish lifestyle and ruthless behavior led to his assassination, marking a dramatic end to the story of his life. I think they killed him because they thought that he was stealing money from the mob. And you know that never goes unpunished. Next up, we got Alvin Karpis. Alvin Karpis, a leader of the Barkus Karpis gang during the 1930s. He was known for his bank robberies, kidnappings, and evasion of law. He was labeled as public enemy number one after the deaths of John Dillinger and Bonnie and Clyde. Karpis was eventually captured by the FBI and served a lengthy prison sentence, becoming the longest serving inmate at Alcatraz. Next up, we have Mr. Frank Costello. Frank Costello is one of the most influential and powerful gangsters in American history, earning the nickname the Prime Minister of the Underworld. He led the Luciano crime family, and he was instrumental in the expansion of the mafia's influence into politics and industry. His ability to avoid violence and foster connections with politicians, businessmen, allowed him to maintain power until his retirement. It's pretty wild if you think about it, how far these criminal gangs came. They turned into crime families, and some of them bear their names to this day. Next up, we got Osworth Bumpy Johnson. Osworth Bumpy Johnson was the undisputed ruler of Harlem's underworld for several decades. Known for his intelligent leadership, Johnson was involved in numerous criminal enterprises, including gambling and narcotics. He was also like a Robin Hood type of figure in Harlem, providing for the needy and standing up against injustice. Next up, we got Tony Accardo. Tony Accardo, also known as the Big Tuna, rose through the ranks of the Chicago outfit to become one of its most effective leaders. Known for his strategic mind and his ability to avoid the spotlight, Accardo maintained his power and influence without serving significant jail time. His reign marked a period of stability and prosperity for the Chicago outfit. Next up, we got Stephanie St. Clair. Stephanie St. Clair was a prominent figure in Harlem's underworld during the Harlem Renaissance. She was a fierce leader in the numbers rackets, battling against both rivals and corrupt police and officials. St. Clair, known for her intelligence, business, she was a savvy businesswoman, and her advocacy for African American community. She's one of the few female Black women who rose to power in these organized crime rings. Next up, we got Vincent the Chin Gigante. Vincent the Chin Gigante, also known for his bizarre tactics, pretending to be insane while wearing a bathrobe. It was earning him the nickname the Odd Father. As a boss of the Genovese crime family, Gigante was a mastermind of organized crime, maintaining his power and influence until keeping a low profile from law enforcement. He ended up going to prison and dying there as a result. Next up, we got Joe Masseria. Giuseppe Joe Masseria was a pivotal figure in the early days of organized crime in the United States. His battle for control of the New York Mafia's operations led to the infamous Castellamare War, which ended with the assassination. Masseria's death marked the rise of the new era of the Mafia leadership under Lucky Luciano. And who do you think killed him? Next up, Dutch Schultz. Dutch Schultz was born Arthur Fletchenheimer, was a powerful gangster who made his fortune through bootlegging, gambling, racketeering during Prohibition. His ruthless tactics and ambition led to numerous gang wars, but also his eventual downfall. Schultz's dramatic life and death have become part of gangster folklore. He was shot in a chop house in New Jersey, and he lay dying on the table. There's a famous picture. He was babbling and rambling before he passed away. Pretty wild story, but we'll get into more about Dutch Schultz later in this series. Next up, Sam Giancana. Sam Giancana was a key figure in the Chicago outfit, and it is perhaps best known as his alleged connections to the CIA. It's rumored his involvement in plots to assassinate Fidel Castro. Also, there is speculation that he had something to do with the JFK assassination. Giancana's influence extended into politics. He was suspected his involvement in the 1960s election. His murder in 1975 remains unsolved, adding to the mystery surrounding his life. Next up, we got Arnold Rothstein. Arnold Rothstein was a gambling kingpin and a mastermind behind fixing the 1919 World Series, better known as the Black Sox scandal. His ability to blend into the upper echelons of society, coupled with his financial acumen, made him a legendary figure in the underworld. Rothstein's murder in 1928 remains one of the most famous unsolved crimes in American history. Next up, John Gotti. John Gotti rose to fame as the boss of the Gambino crime family, known for his flamboyant style, outspoken personality. Despite multiple trials, Gotti evaded conviction for many years, earning him the nickname the Teflon Don. His eventual conviction and life sentence marked the end of an era for the mafia's public persona. He ended up dying in Marion, Illinois. Well, they transferred him to a different penitentiary. He ended up dying. Next up, got Mickey Cohen. Mickey Cohen became gangland king of Los Angeles after the death of his mentor, Bugsy Siegel. His control over gambling, narcotics, and vice in LA made him a prominent figure in both the criminal underworld and Hollywood society. Cohen's life was marked by high-profile relationships, numerous assassination attempts, and a stint in prison. Next up, we got Whitey Bulger. James Whitey Bulger, leader of the Irish mob in Boston, was a notorious figure in the criminal activities for being an FBI informant. His ability to evade capture for nearly 16 years made him one of America's most wanted fugitives. In 2011, Bulger's arrest and subsequent conviction ended in a long, infamous career of one of the most complex gangsters in American history. And he was eventually murdered at an FCI prison, in federal prison in West Virginia, I believe. A lot of people think he deserved it. Next up, we got Nicky Barnes. Leroy Nicky Barnes, also known as Mr. Untouchable, for his ability to evade law enforcement while leading a powerful drug trafficking network in New York City during the 1970s. His criminal empire crumbled when he was eventually convicted and turned informant, leading to the dismantlement of his network. Next up, we got Tony Spilatro. Anthony the Ant Spilatro was sent to Las Vegas by the Chicago outfit to protect and expand their casino interests. His violent methods and involvement in numerous murders made him feared and respected. Spilatro inspired characters for Nicky Santoro in the film Casino, and his murder in 1986 signaled the decline of the mob influence in Las Vegas. Next up, we got Frank Lucas. Frank Lucas rose to prominence in the Harlem drug scene by cutting out middlemen and directly importing heroin from Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. His brand, Blue Magic, became known for its purity and low cost. Lucas' innovative approach to subsequent law enforcement crackdown on his operations and became subject to a film, The American Gangster. He was sneaking the heroin back in the caskets of dead Vietnam soldiers. Pretty wild stuff. Next up, we got Albert Anastasia. Albert Anastasia is one of the most feared mob hitmen of his time, leading the most notorious Murder Inc. squad. His role in the execution of rivals and anyone deemed a threat to the mafia cemented his reputation as Lord High Executioner. Anastasia's own violent death in a barber chair highlighted in a brutal world in which he lived. Next up, Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo, known as Crazy Joe Gallo, was a rebellious figure in the New York Mafia, challenging the old guard. In his unpredictable behavior and attempts to take over mafia operations, his brazen daylight assassination in Manhattan Clam House was a sensational event, and it marked the end of his ambitious rise. But it wasn't the daylight, it was early in the morning when he was killed. Next up, we got Paul Castellano. Paul Castellano was one of the Gambino crime family's most powerful bosses, known for his business-like approach to organized crime. He focused on white-collar crime, expanding the family's interest into legitimate business. Castellano's assassination outside Manhattan Steakhouse in 1985, ordered by John Gotti, signified the dramatic shift in the mafia's power. That was the 25 most notorious criminals in American history. These mobsters embody the complex interplay between crime, culture, and the American dream gone awry. Their stories are marked by ambition, power, and violence, offered a dark mirror into the pursuit of success and influence in the United States. While their legacies are often glamorized in pop culture, the real impact of their actions left deep scars on communities they operated within and on the American society as a whole. Throughout their tale, we gained insight into the shadowy underworld in the American history and its ongoing struggles between law and order and the allure of the criminal underworld. And I hope you guys like this episode. There's a lot more like it on the way. If you guys like this, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you want to donate to the channel, you can donate through Cash App, Chattin with Staxx. And I appreciate every single person that checks out this show. I'll see you soon on the next one. Don't get indicted.